Welcome to the Home Theater United podcast. My name is Brian Dobbs.
And I'm still Sam Poston.
Still Sam Post. So, okay, I feel like, all right, first of all, goodness.
Are you home,
I,
Brian?
I'm back home. I've settled back in. Forgive my my brain, my scatterbrain for the moment, because I'm like, do I announce the title of the show, or do I just start talking about like Reconnection? Okay, so today, Sam,
Yeah.
is a very special day.
Well, not as special as last time, but it's still pretty special, Brian.
Yeah. The last time was awesome
Yep.
because we got a chance to do it in your home studio,
We
which we're
did
going
it
to talk just
live.
a little bit more about. Um, but today we're going to be talking about directors,
Okay.
and we got a couple of guests
Yeah.
joining us tonight, Sam.
Some repeats, Brian.
Yeah, some returning champions here.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to this because I wanted to just open this up because I have my favorites, directors, and I have my perspectives on directors, and I'm sure you do too. But
Mm-hmm.
I want this to be just a fun, casual conversation.
Yeah, we're going to kind
And
of do roundtable style, right?
yeah, of course. So should we do some reconnection points first?
Want to say who's on first?
Oh,
Let them
all right,
say
sure.
hi.
So joining us tonight is Todd Irwin and Neil Middlemiss. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Good to be here.
So as some of you might know, I went out to Maryland and got a chance to visit Sam again, which is always nice. So Sam, well, one of my main concerns was leaving your place with all those movies that you gave me.
Did the TSA let you through, Brian?
Oh, I got two funny things. So Sam was gracious enough to let me comb through his movie collection and not only take movies he was getting rid of, but go through his 4Ks and take like the Blu-ray with me because,
Yeah.
you only need one of them. And it's funny because, Sam, when I got to my parents' house, my dad started combing through all the movies that I brought home from your place,
Nice.
brought there from your place. And so he was going through the Blu-rays and taking the DVDs.
That's awesome. It's like the human centipede of discs.
So he starts going through my bags. I think I just brought them in paper bags, and it's like, oh hey, nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Oh hey, what's that? Movies? Let me start immediately going through them.
Nice. Is
So-
this something that you've done before?
To just give him the DVDs.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure, but
Okay.
like him and I, that's just that's where I get my fascination and love
Sure.
of movies.
That's
So
awesome.
it's just like, anyway. But I was concerned, Sam, that the weight of my bags getting back on the airplane would be too much because
Yeah.
Southwest has got that or I guess they all do have that 50-pound weight limit.
Yeah.
And flying out to Maryland, I was like 48.5 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So I packed them all in there. Man, it was like, I don't know, Rubik's Cube, not like Tetris, right?
Yeah.
I finally get to the airport, BWI, fly back, and I'm like, okay, the moment of truth, because I had no way of weighing it. And my big suitcase ended up being like 51 and a half, maybe 52.
Oh.
But the guy, I don't know if it was my lucky day. The guy didn't say anything. He just said, put your other one up here. And it was like 47, 48. So I think he just averaged
the
them out and just waved me
average.
through.
Nice.
So I don't know if that's protocol or what, but I got
Mhm.
home because I was like, I don't want to have to spend like $50 to bring home these DVDs.
$4 worth of DVDs.
Yeah, I know. It wouldn't have really made it worth it to
No.
me. I guess I could have. So anyway,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I see here that you have an update on your scariest movie too, Brian. Why don't you tell us about that?
this completely slipped my mind, and maybe it's because it scarred me so bad back in the day. I did have a terrible experience, not terrible, but the Ring was my scariest movie.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that truly frightened me. But what hit me even harder was the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, you actually bought into it, huh?
Yes. Now, this was back in high school. I went to go see it with my friend Jeff, and we watched it, and there wasn't, the internet back then as it is today. So viral marketing was
Off the
you know,
chain.
the concept had yet to really become mainstream. And so I went to go see it and I had no context for it whatsoever. And so
Right.
I walk out of it. I'm like, I am scared shitless because I didn't know what the concept of found footage was. Like that's a style now.
Yeah.
Right. But back then it just was like, oh my God, did they just really find this video camera?
Wow.
So for like 2 days, I was scared out of my mind about this. I'm like, how come no one's talking about this?
Where are these missing people?
Yeah, like how do they release this in the movie theater? So then I went to the pool store where I was working, and and the owners there, one of them was like, "Oh, yeah, I saw them on daytime television or like a talk show. It was just a movie. They were just actors." I'm
Oprah
like,
had them on.
You've got to be kidding me! Are you serious? It was all fake?
Yeah,
It's just a movie. But that scared me, dude. It hit me hard.
I mean, that's about the most authentic movie experience I've ever heard of, Brian. So, man, I mean, cherish that one. That's pretty awesome. For me, I think it was an example of like the first, clips were really coming to the internet at that point, and so I was truly wired in on that stuff. So we knew all the backstory, and that it was, that they were going to market it like it was, a real deal, but everybody knew that it wasn't. So,
I wasn't clued in, man. I was just, it was beyond me.
That's awesome, and that you have a real experience like that. That's great. I wish more people had that experience for sure.
Well, ever since then, walking through the woods now, like,
yeah, no doubt.
I mean, it's impossible not to make the reference of the little stick figures hanging from the trees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's just a creepy part of the woods, like that's immediately where my mind goes to. And me and my wife joke about it too. But
well, I mean, they did that way better than even True Detective did, right? Because I mean, that was a whole deal in like True Detective. So.
God, I want to go back and watch True Detective now. That was so
just
well
don't
done.
Watch the last episode, and it's the greatest thing ever. I'm on my own on that one. Everybody disagrees with me, but I'm okay with it.
How do you end a perfect season? Like what ending could you possibly?
On that one, I don't know, but there are series that have perfect endings, and maybe that's a show. But I mean, for me, Breaking Bad has one of the best endings of all times. MASH. Because I was one of the people that watched that live. It was like the biggest audience ever. So I must have been like 8 years old or something dumb like that, and got caught up in the hype. So.
All right, so I'm trying not to look at the.
Okay, so we'll jump to that right now
here.
because it's related. So. For those that listen to the show, you know that my family was worried about me getting rid of my Blu-rays that turns out it was just, the dupes and things that I've upgraded. Brian, I got rid of over 500 discs and didn't get a penny for them.
What? What'd you end up doing with them?
I got to say about 25% went to friends and family, and that made me super, super happy.
Yeah.
And one of the guys was a friend of a friend who came over, and he picked out about 30 of his 30 discs of stuff that he wanted to watch. And he says, what are you going to do with the rest of them? I was like, I don't know. People are saying to take them to Goodwill or put them up. I just don't have the energy for it. And he goes,
yeah,
well, I got a buddy who's kind of housebound, and he's a collector, and he will get rid of everything on Craigslist if you just want to give them to him. I'm like, well, I'd rather him go to somebody I know than just the randos over at Goodwill. So I helped him carry like 6 boxes to his car, and they all went to his buddy. And
wow.
And good luck to him, man. If he's able to turn a profit from zero into whatever, that's all found money for him. So that makes me super happy that it's going to him and not Goodwill.
Yeah, dude, it's always a good feeling when you can pass it on to someone who might value it, and you don't have to just trash it or something.
Right. And you might have seen this, Brian, but I don't know if the listeners know it, but I got a new projector now.
Okay, so the last I saw, Sam, was that you were having some alignment issues. Is that related?
Yeah. So as it turns out, me and my dad are not as good a home theater installers as we thought we were. I wound up taking the mount down that my dad and I put up, and I put a new mount on, and it was misaligned exactly the same way, the misalignment that my dad and I had put the old one up. But this one had 3 axes of rotation. So there's pitch, yaw, and rotation. And so the rotation was off like 2 degrees, and I twisted it the one way that I thought would make sense, and it didn't seem to do anything. And people on AVS and Home Theater Forum were like, no, turn it the other direction. And literally within 15 seconds, I had an absolutely perfectly aligned picture, and it's better than it's ever been. But that's not even the big change. So our buddy Dave Fisher was he and I both had considered going out to the Kansas City projector shootout that happened last month. That was run through AVS, and they put about 15 different projectors through their paces. But the big conclusion from the shootout was that running everything through either a MAD VR device or using one of the Panasonic Blu-ray players or 4K players, using the kind of fake tone mapping, static tone mapping that those devices have, you can actually trick the players into, instead of having things authored at 1,000 nits, it basically scales everything down to 250 nits. So, I mean, when you're watching a projector, you say, well, 250 nits versus 1,000 nits, that's got to be a huge difference. But when everything is scaled right and it's getting the right information, HDR looks remarkably better on that device. So I wound up getting a $200 Panasonic 420, and the difference was so remarkably better that I literally went through 50 of my discs just sampling the HDR on them. And it's not as good as OLED. Don't get me wrong. OLED still has a significant bump on it, but it really, 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 really closed the gap. Now, there's downsides to this, right? It's only discs through this Panasonic deck. And if you want to do streams and stuff like that, you got to buy this MAD VR thing. And you can build a PC to do MAD VR streams and stuff like that for a couple grand. But if you want the commercial version that you could buy from a vendor, it's like 15 grand. And so that's way worse than buying a whole new laser projector. So that's dead out for me. But now I'm kind of, do I really want to spend 10 to 15 grand upgrading this very expensive already projector, or going to a smaller OLED panel? So I'm going to wait till more product comes for these projectors and see what happens throughout the year, and see what happens with the pricing on these OLEDs. But I think I'm pretty content to stick with what I got right now, as long as all I'm doing is watching UHD discs on the thing, and I can watch the streams on my 75-inch panel and on my 48-inch OLED up in my gaming room, so that's not a problem. But man, it's like having a whole new projector 5 years after buying the thing,
So how would you compare the image quality, to what you and I watched together?
Okay, so
which we should talk about.
Yeah. So what was the movie we watched? Let's tell the audience.
We watched The Last Duel.
Right. And so on that, right, the level of detail was terrific, right? You could see, definition in skin. You could see individual leaves and stuff like that on the 4K stream. But the HDR was kind of muted, right? The colors were a little bit off and stuff like that. You'd agree to that?
Yeah, and I was wondering if that was the style of the movie. Like, okay, there's a lot of fog, a lot of haze, gray skies and all that. If that's just what Ridley Scott wanted.
Yeah, so we could have gone upstairs and watched that on my 75-inch panel that's, color perfect and stuff like that, and compared it, but we never did. But yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? The projector is incapable of keeping up to, the standards of OLED and FALD, but also Ridley Scott did use kind of a muted palette with it, and there's not a whole lot of HDR in that particular movie. But then you put on something like Ghostbusters Afterlife, which just has terrific HDR through the whole thing, and you can really tell the difference. And so if I was to go, and I can do this, I can go back to the original settings and I watch Ghostbusters on an OLED, right? And that's at 100, right? Because the HDR is perfect. If I look at it with the old settings on the projector, I'd say that's like a 75. If I look at it with the new HDR, it's north of 90, right? So if OLED's 100, this is 90, and it's 4 times the size of any OLED panel, because 65 is the average OLED panel versus 120-inch my screen. Is that worth spending $10,000 to close that gap, and how much can the gap really get closed with a laser projector versus an OLED? I've never seen one in action, right? I've advertised on AVS, on a home theater forum. If you've got one of these new JVCs on the Eastern Seaboard, from Virginia to New Jersey or as far west as Pennsylvania, I'll drive and bring the beer and popcorn, and nobody's taken me up on it yet. So there's just so few of them out there.
It sounds like you've got to breathe new life into your setup here.
It really did. And so I had a whole group of people from the board gaming group come over, and we watched Ghostbusters, and they were just blown away at that. Then I had a whole nother group come in, and I showed them the Planet of the Apes, which is the demo material I use most often. And I watched it again with my mouth open, because I'm like, holy cow, this is 10 times better with the HDR actually working. It's a whole new experience. So that actually brings me to my next topic. Todd, you reviewed the Lord of the Rings box set, right?
Correct.
And so one of my buddies had said that he didn't think that the effects and stuff held up on it. And so for the last week and a half, I've been trudging through the Hobbit extended editions. Mm-hmm. And personally, I think he's out of his mind, because when it looks good, right, that it's clearly in a league of its own with the detail and the HDR and all all of what UHD is capable of. I think where he's getting messed up is like in the dream sequences and the flashbacks and stuff. There's like a layer on top of it that's cutting down the quality and muddying things up, and that's by design not supposed to look crystal clear. Also some of the darker scenes, maybe you lose, a little bit of definition and stuff like that. But to say that it doesn't hold up, I think is crazy, especially with the CGI effects. I mean, I would put that up against any 2022 CGI experience and still say it holds up fine. And
we're going to talk about CGI later on my pick.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sure. Well, this isn't my good, bad, or ugly. So I'm just saying that.
No, just bookmark that, because we're going back to it.
Yeah. So Todd, what did you give that for video quality? You gave it a 5, right?
I gave all 6 movies a 5. Now, The Hobbit, though, was shot in 4K.
Yeah.
4K 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And high frame rate.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings, though, was shot on 35 millimeter.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if and it was also 10 years before that, I think.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to Lords of the Ring yet, so we'll see.
Yes, I'm wondering if he's talking about Lord of the Rings and not The Hobbit, because The Hobbit is a more modern film.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Peter Jackson did when he went back and remastered all 6 films was he did most of the work on the Lord of the Rings films to try to match the look more of the Hobbit films.
Okay.
So that you could watch, and I've done this, watched all 6 movies back to back to back.
In one day?
Oh, no.
Oh,
over
okay.
a weekend. Over a holiday weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, I started the Lord of the Rings last Sunday, and I started The Hobbit last Sunday, and I just got through the extended Battle of Five Armies last night. So it's going to take me at least a week to get through the next three. So,
Okay.
so I'm still on your side, Todd. I would agree. All three of them are definite fives. So I think those hold up, but I will hold my verdict on the Lord of the Rings till I view them.
Okay. Plus, you have them all in Atmos now.
That is true, and they were terrific. And man, it just shakes the whole house. Speaking of Atmos, though, Brian, again, I use the War for the Planet of the Apes as my personal Atmos favorite demo scenes. I think Ghostbusters Afterlife in Dolby Atmos is way, way, way more intense than it was in the theater in Dolby Cinema. And
nice.
That's a bold statement, but I think it's true. There's just so much going on there that I don't know any other movie that can compare to it. So if you get a chance to pull that one up in Atmos, I give it my highest recommendation.
Yeah, I'm stuck with 7.1 for a while, but I hear you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that finishes up our reconnections, unless you got anything else, Brian.
Oh, should we just mention real quick what we thought of The Last Duel?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you tell folks what you thought of it first, and then I'll go.
So this was the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. What's the other guy's name?
Oh,
Kylo Ren from Star Wars. Whatever his face is. He's a good actor.
Yeah. Driver, Adam Driver.
Adam Driver. I had no idea what this movie was about.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was a period piece, but this was based on a true story, which appeals to me when I watch films more and more these days. So I enjoyed this movie. Actually, I didn't know what to make of it, and I thought Ridley Scott was done making these sorts of movies, but I guess he's not.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't so sure about Matt Damon's haircut or why they.
That's a choice, right?
But I think I accepted that a little bit more than Ben Affleck's bleach job on his hair.
Yeah.
Like what the hell's going on here? Adam Driver is such a good actor.
Yeah. You seen...
I don't know if he was supposed to be the bad guy in this movie, but he's just so likable. I had a hard time, discerning who is the, whose story it was, even though it was clearly, laid out for us.
Did you see that divorce movie that he was in on Netflix? I can't remember the name of it.
Was that with Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it. No.
He is you talk about actors acting like actors. Man, it's just so smooth that you don't think of it as acting in that. And that kind of movie where it's relationship drama doesn't really appeal to me. But the acting in it held up from both of them. So I agree.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best actors of this generation.
Did you like the movie?
Yes, yeah, and knowing that it had some historical basis and just being a fan of that time period and jousting and fighting and stuff like that, I was eating it up. I felt that going through the story multiple times, the way that it's framed, and again, where's our spoiler alert? I must have that muted. But going through the story from a number of different perspectives, that's the choice that it makes. It drug on a little bit at the end, but otherwise, I thought it was terrific. I thought it was way better than audiences gave it credit for. Let's put it that way, because it didn't do well in the theaters, I don't think.
Yeah, it probably could have benefited from cutting 15 minutes out of it somewhere.
Yeah, and it didn't really help that Ridley Scott was all over the news saying that the fault was in audiences and not his films. So, well, then what shall we talk about?
Yeah. Let's get into it, shall we? So anyway, Sam, we are here today with Todd and Neil to talk about directors. I wanted to talk about my favorite directors, also want to talk about my not so favorite directors, but I like the notes you added here in the document because there's different ways we can talk about it, what their role is, like you said in here. And just looking at their career as a whole, I like all these notes here.
Okay.
Want
to start at the beginning?
Can
then?
we start with just favorite directors?
No.
Or should we start with,
no, we can't
with
start
what you
with
have
favorite.
here?
No, we can't start with favorites. Sure, Brian. What is your favorite director and why?
Well, okay. I think all we need to do for the rest of the show is talk about Christopher Nolan, and
vetoed.
You son of a bitch.
There we go.
yeah.
I found my buttons.
You son of a bitch.
Buttons working now.
Yes.
Can we just go around the room here?
Yep.
Let's just throw out 2 or 3 of our favorite directors, and then we can sort of riff on them as we discuss the rest of your bullet points here.
All right. Well, we got yours out of the way, Brian. I'm going to be a good host, and I'm going to ask our guests who their favorite directors are. And let's start with you, Neil.
So my favorite director of all time is James Cameron, for reasons I hope we get to talk about. But I would put in the handful of directors that I religiously follow, I'd put Christopher Nolan in that top 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there with you, Brian. Peter Jackson, David Fincher, Guillermo del Toro, Catherine Bigelow, and I hope I say his last name right, but Denis Villeneuve, and Cronenberg.
Okay.
Would be among them.
Yeah, dude. Nice.
Okay. How about you, Todd?
Old school. Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, Joe Dante, but I also would throw in James Cameron, Del Toro. And that would be, yeah.
Zemeckis and Del Toro. These are ones that I would obviously agree with you, but for whatever reason, they just didn't come up the top of my list. But Del Toro being that visionary, and Zemeckis always have had embraced the newer technology to make films. Sam, what about you?
See, I would I'd put a big cleaver in my choices, and I would say that the directors that I enjoyed from 8 to 18 are significantly different than the ones that I've enjoyed as an adult. And so, 8 to 18, it was all about Spielberg and Lucas and, a few others in there. But as I have grown into the hobby of being not just a home theater fanatic, but also a cinephile, I've been exposed to so many different things. And I appreciate bad movies from good directors and good movies from bad directors. But I would add things like Cameron and Tarantino and yeah. I mean all the ones that have been listed for sure. But I don't have a favorite director as an adult so much as I did in my childhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, given that there's so much more content these days, it's hard to keep track of everything and what everyone's working on. And there's just so much good these days.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a super megastar.
Right. And
even in the director realm. Yeah.
And for me, so much of the good storytelling moved to serialized TV that colors that as well. But, I'm certainly a fan of, J.J. Abrams and, some of the folks that have kind of carried the torch for, adventure and movies aimed at, not adolescents and young teenagers and stuff like that. That still hits right in my wheelhouse.
But I'm right there with you, Neil. Cameron, I think, is probably my number 2. But yeah, Peter Jackson. God, there's just so many good ones here. I'd actually throw in the Wachowskis now, with the exception being, of course, Jupiter Ascending, which was god awful. But I think what I gravitate towards is not just how prolific or how talented the director is, but what appeals to me more and more these days is the writer director.
Yeah.
Of which Nolan has gotten into, Cameron's obviously doing.
Yep.
And a few of these other guys are actually doing too.
Yeah. So does one bad movie color your opinion of a director?
No, not one bad movie, but it would be nice if the Wachowskis had a lot more under their belt, which they don't. I mean, Speed Racer is an underrated movie. It's a very well-directed movie, highly stylized, but it's easy to poke fun of just because it's kind of silly.
Right.
But as if you're looking at the directing of it, it's solid.
I might have watched it once and dismissed it, so I'll have to check it out again, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, it's kind of weird, but okay. So now we got all that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
We're
done
like
fanboying.
What you got here? What's that?
We're done fanboying.
Yeah, I need to get that out of my system first.
Okay.
And along the way, let's pepper in some shitty directors. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we'll just pepper some of them in.
Okay.
So I like your question here, Sam. How much power does a director really have? And I guess, are we speaking more towards their role in crafting a film?
Sure. And we've seen some remarkable flameouts recently, right? Where we've, had gone back to directors being replaced and then them getting their chance to, put out their vision as an alternate take on the film. And, the obvious one there's the Snyder cut and stuff like that. So
yeah, Star Wars did that too, didn't they? Then replace the
well, I mean, Lucas replaced his own vision on stuff, so yeah. So that's a good point, man.
It's the producer who's working behind the scenes and who has hiring power over everybody, including the director.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not until you get to the status of a Nolan or a Cameron where it's like you're calling the shots like everywhere.
Yep, that's fair.
So, Neil, Todd, anything to add here on this?
I think some of these directors, the ones that have gotten replaced, they've walked into a machine, which is, I don't lament the machine filmmaking process, the Marvel, the Disney, not the Disney, the Marvel, the DC universe, the Star Wars universe, because these are entertainment machines and they're well calibrated as part of their success. So I think what Sam was talking about with directors being replaced is like Lord and Miller being replaced from Solo, and Ron Howard having to come in, and then the fellow who directed Colin Trevorrow, I think, was going to direct one of the next the Rise of Skywalker or whatever it was going to be called, and was replaced because he did a movie called Book of Henry that didn't do well, and they got nervous. And so these are, when you're a director that's choosing to sort of sign up to carry a film through that's part of a much, much larger machine or much, much larger puzzle. I think your singular vision or your stamp and your flexibility and your creativity has rules, and that won't work for it. That's why you'll never see a James Cameron direct a Marvel movie, even though he planned to do Spider-Man, way back when. Because the rules are too limiting unless they set those on fire. And I think you might see if Christopher Nolan wanted to come in and do a James Bond movie. Again, that's another sort of machine.
Yeah, but he couldn't do it within the machine system. It would have to be his movie. Like, that's the only way he would agree to do it. Right?
Well, I think that's why he did Tenet, because he was like, I want to do a movie that evokes the theme and style and the idea of Bond, but I'm not tied to Bond and the rules of Bond. So,
or even the Batman or Inception. It's like same thing. It's just like got all these Bond overtones.
Yeah, that's what when we talk about why directors are our favorite directors. Like the directors that can do these things, that are so driven, that have built themselves up, that have taken chances early enough in their career, bought that critical capital, and then brought in the box office gold to get themselves in a position where they can not dictate, but have much more creative control over what they work on and what ends up on the screen. I'm drawn to those kinds of filmmakers. And we should have said the Scorseses, the Akira Kurosawas. We should have said those names as the fantastic directors that we follow, but they are, they're right up there too, although they may not always have the power that we want them to have, certainly in Kurosawa's case towards the end of his career. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you there, Brian. Maybe not within the confines of the system. They would never subject themselves to it. But I think that's why you see directors shuffle in and shuffle out. I wish we didn't hear about it because it gives the production a bad name. when it finally does arrive on the big screen. But yeah, it's a machine, so they don't have that much power.
I'm glad you brought up the machine. I think with rare exception, like within the Marvel system, you have a Taika Waititi coming in and adding his own creative flair and completely evolving the character of Thor and what those movies should be. If you take a look at the Russo brothers, I think they came in and they essentially were just in control of a well-oiled machine, just making sure everyone was hitting their mark and doing what they needed to do. But does it really make a difference anymore who's directing a Marvel movie if so much of it is already done in previs and worked out in the writing room anyway?
Yeah, but I guess from my perspective, the Marvel movies are just such a small slice of all things that are out there. I mean, so can you judge an industry by what's going on there versus, everything else?
No, but it's certainly a very large piece of the movie
Conversation.
consuming
Yeah.
budget. Yeah, and I'm not budget like money, but the time and energy
Right.
that people put into
Yeah.
and go see. Spider-Man's a great example. It's ridiculous how much money the last Spider-Man movie made during a pandemic when every other film struggles to even get, notice that it's out. So there's something unique about the Marvel role in the state of cinema today. I don't begrudge it. I love it. I consume it. I'm an avowed follower of all things Marvel between the TV series and their movies, but it's a different kind of cinema.
And so, Brian, you haven't seen the latest Spider-Man, right?
Correct. I'm still catching up. I'm back on Black Widow. I haven't seen Black Widow yet, and nothing after that.
All right, but you are aware that there are like spoilers for that movie that have come out, right?
Yeah, I've been staying away from movie news really the past year or so.
Okay, so and the one thing I want to say about that is I have to give credit to that entire production for keeping as much secret about it until even 2 and 3 days after it went live, and I think audiences enjoyed it so much that they, kept that kind of silence going. Whereas I think, like a lot of TV stuff is, spoiled that day. So I'm just impressed that Spider-Man was able to keep that level of secrecy. And I don't know if you can point to the director on it. I don't even know who did direct that one.
I know. Does it even matter? I mean,
so
they've already figured it all out behind the scenes. I mean, just take a look at that thing. I think you might have sent it to me, Sam, or somebody. But like with the battle scenes, like they've scripted it all out years in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And
still kept it secret. That's the crazy. That's my point.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Todd, what do you think about this? Do you think that we're blowing it over too much, or do directors not have as much power as people might give them credit for?
I think it depends on the type of movie that it is. Because if you notice, Del Toro has gone back to kind of making independent films.
Yeah, he just did that Nightmare Alley, right?
Right. After Hellboy 2, he kind of went back to doing more independent personal films. And then, Spielberg is kind of not really doing the big spectacles as much anymore. He's probably looking towards the end of his career at this point, because he's getting up there in years. But I do agree. I mean, I think when you look at a franchise like Marvel or Star Wars, and it really doesn't. It does matter the director that you bring in, but not as much. I just finished watching Eternals, and yes, the director had a lot to do with that movie.
From a cultural
later this week, but
from a cultural perspective, or just overall.
Just overall, I mean, but then you look at like the last Thor film and the upcoming Thor movie, which are Taika Waititi, if I'm pronouncing his name properly. He's putting an interesting spin on that Thor character,
right?
And kind of and after the second Thor movie, Thor needed a shakeup. But
Do you think any
and-
do you think any directors these days, Marvel or not, has what, used to be considered the gold standard of a Final Cut authority?
Yes, I do. I think obviously James Cameron does because he's a perfectionist. Spielberg does to some extent, but I mean, the studios have kind of turned away from doing mid-budget and low-budget movies, and basically all they're churning out, for the most part, are big blockbusters. And the big blockbusters are so heavily controlled by the executives and the producers, and where a director really doesn't have a whole lot of say, in my opinion, that he may have had 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I get that the perspective is that it's all tentpole pictures these days, but I'm just going to I'm going to go down the list of what's currently screening at my local AMC. Jackass Forever. Yeah, I mean, it's not an independent movie, but it's not a AAA. Moonfall. We can talk about that director in a bit. Spider-Man No Way Home is still there. Scream, Sing 2, Redeeming Love, I've never heard of. Kingsman, Wolf and the Lion, The 355, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, House of Gucci, Belfast, and Matrix Resurrections. And again, a lot of those are also co-premiering online these days, which, is a whole different conversation. But, I mean, that's a good 50% of them is not AAA films. So I don't know if I'm off on my own here, but I disagree that it's all AAA these days. It's just those are what's getting the oxygen, but that's not all that's being made.
It does seem pretty remarkable that in this time that Spider-Man's making so much money. I did see that in my news feed. I'm like, wait, what? It's almost as if there was no pandemic.
Well, not only that, but it's one of the few films that isn't co-headlining on streaming. So you have to go to the theaters to see that.
Oh, man. Well, interesting. I just got a notification, not to get too far off subject here, but I just got a notification that they won't be requiring Oregon State employees to wear masks in the workplace after March. So I'm wondering if that's just a sign of things opening up and life, quote unquote, getting back to normal, and we could stop worrying about having this anxiety. I don't know, but I just feel like the public may be ready to. It's always enjoyable to go to the theater.
Yeah, I've been going to the theater for 6 months, and I think everybody there has been pretty respectable. And I'd say that half the theater's wearing masks and half isn't. And I've done both, depending on how many people are in the theater. So it's a really weird world, and we can't get into the politics of it, but
yeah.
It's all tied, all of those calculuses are tied to that. So,
well, getting back on the agenda here, how much power does a director really have? Final cut, I think it's if you're part of the machine, yeah, you're not getting final cut.
Right,
but
you're work for hire, right?
Yeah, but like if you're James Cameron or Christopher Nolan or a few of these other guys, then that's built into your contract. Like you're an artist, and it's your vision.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious to know if there's ever going to be any like deleted scenes in Christopher Nolan movies, like because what he wants, he puts in there. They just know exactly what they want.
That's an interesting idea. I thought there were some deleted scenes from the Batmans. No.
There might have been, but I know there's a ton for Avatar. God, there was so much bonus material on those discs.
Yeah.
But when you make movies that long, you're bound to cut something.
Well, how many movies has Cameron put out total?
Oh, geez.
7?
Huh.
7?
Well, I did 2 documentaries as well. I did Ghost of the Abyss and Aliens of the Deep. So if you count those, got Terminator 1 and 2, The Abyss, True Lies, Titanic, Avatar, Aliens of the Abyss,
so
8, 9.
Yeah, 8 or 9 in a 30 to 40 year career.
Piranha 2.
Yeah.
See, Piranha 2 is reading about Piranha 2 is one of the reasons that I love James Cameron. So clearly he was trying to get his bona fides. I read the story about when he joined Roger Corman's production that he was instantly hated because he figured out how to do everything and got himself so ingrained in how to make movies and the production. He basically learned to do everything, that he rose up the ranks pretty quickly, and within a couple of weeks had a small crew working under him. So that is a creative drive to make movies. But Piranha 2, because he was obviously shuffled off and sidelined, and he had to fly from the filming location to go yell at the person who was controlling the purse strings, the maniacal producer who was interfering with everything. But he would break into the studio or the editing room every night and recut the movie the way that he wanted to, because someone else was cutting his movie and he didn't like it. Right. That's why I love a director like James Cameron. He does what he has to do in order to get the film that he thinks needs to be up on screen, even if it's a piece of crap like Piranha 2, because he knew his name was associated with it. That's why I like a director like James Cameron.
And about directors, so, okay, a producer's like, okay, I got a bunch of money. I want to make a movie, but I don't know how to speak to the actors. I don't know how to put this together. I need someone to come in here who's got those people skills to get what they need out of the actors to get the good performance on screen. And if they're talented enough, they, maybe they don't need a whole lot of direction. But if you're behind the camera and you're looking for something specific, you need someone with that eye to be able to discern right then and there if they got the performance. And, producers, they may not have that expertise. They got the money. They know what's going to perform well at the box office, but they need someone who gets those performances shot on camera and who can talk to the technical crew and who can talk to the wardrobe people and who knows what the elements are that will make a good movie. So sort of segueing into our next bullet point, but like, what's the best analogy for director? A conductor? Yeah, maybe. I like what you put here, Sam. Dictator or somewhere in between. It does depend, right? Because if they didn't write the script, then the story's already there. So it's just taking what's on the page and making it happen. James Cameron's more like a dictator, but it's his thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
and
guess
he lets people know that too. He's like, I'm boss, and everyone's just going to listen to me.
Yeah, I guess, is there a difference between a dictator and like an auteur, right? I mean, somebody with a vision versus just somebody who, not even artistic, but a drive to get something made. I don't know if there are directors like that,
Well, I wouldn't ever call Chris Nolan a dictator. It's just not his persona. He's so soft-spoken and he's just so people respect him. So, it's like you lead by respect or you lead by fear.
Right.
You know how like you're a leader, right? And Cameron's like, yeah, well, I guess people do respect him, but like people should also fear him because he, they will suffer his wrath. But Chris Nolan's just so professional, just so soft-spoken, but he lets the work speak for itself. So I think, their demeanor also factors into all of that.
Yeah, and I know that we had put the call out for some of our reviewers and other Home Theater Forum members to talk about directors. I really was hoping that somebody who was a real Kubrick head would join in. Neil, did you say you've got a little bit of history with Kubrick?
No, only from the fan perspective. Josh, the reviewer Josh, he knows more about Kubrick than I think all of us combined.
Yeah, so I wish Josh had been able to join up. But yeah, because I mean, that's an entirely different take on that auteur dictator kind of deal where, doing things, 400 takes on something, and...
Well, I think Kubrick is a more extreme version of what Cameron is. I wouldn't call Cameron a dictator, but Christopher Nolan is a man driven by strong artistic cinema vision. He knows exactly what his piece of cinema art needs to be, and he will collaborate with the best of the business in order to make sure it happens. And inclusive of that is, writing it to craft a story that's compelling. And you'll be jealous, Brian. I recently rewatched all of Christopher Nolan's movies in a row.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Because I wanted to see his progression. I wanted to see how he got from Following and
Oh, you even included Following.
yeah, and Memento all the way to Tenet, which is this big beast of a film that confused so many people. But I wanted to watch his artistic vision and his drive, and I could see his work for hire element in the film Insomnia, which is a good film, but it's one of his most normal films.
It is.
But he quickly turned that around when he did the commercial film. He did the Batman Begins, and then he did Prestige, which is a fantastic film, and then he did Not Dark Knight, and then he did whatever he did after Dark Knight. But anyway, a fascinating. But he's a collaborator, and he's so enamored with cinema that his work and effort is to bring the best thing up on screen, and he is unrelenting in his pursuit of that. But he just does it politely because he's English. James Cameron.
How convenient.
How convenient. James Cameron is a tactical, technical god, and I don't say that lightly. Who has an artistic pursuit, and I read this quote because I have a couple of books on James Cameron. One is a collection of interviews with him, so I know quite a bit about him and his style, but because he knows how to do everything on the set, he knows how to do every job there is in making a film. When he has someone, and he knows exactly what he wants to see, and making a movie is a team sport. He couldn't do everything himself. He's not making a single camera self-portrait film in a bathroom. He requires hundreds of crew and dozens of actors and back-end special effects crews, in the old days building miniatures and nowadays building files in computers. So he requires, that's why the auteur terminology is a bit of a misnomer, because no one does it, no man is an island, as it were. Mm-hmm. But because he knows how to do everything, he's able to command that thing, that little bit of lighting over there, or that whatever the heck it is, a bit of scenery in the back there,
right,
needs to be exactly the way he imagined it, because that's his artistic drive. And that is, his techniques might be a bit abrasive. People on the Abyss would have T-shirts that said, "What are you complaining about? He's letting you breathe." But people who work with Cameron go back to work with Cameron. And that tells you, I think, more than anything else, that the people who can survive the journey, who understand the artistic drive, and then, realize what it meant because they see it up on screen. They see Aliens up on screen. They see Terminator 2 up on screen, and they think, okay, well, it was worth it. There's something to be said for that almost dictatorial, but not quite the crazy that Kubrick tended to be. Mm-hmm. But Cameron's also adaptable, so he will take the reality of a circumstance and then he'll invent the thing to go make that thing happen. But he specifically chooses films that are very, very difficult to make because either the technology isn't there or it's going to require going down to Titanic to, in a submersible to check it out. Like, he will choose these very, very tough pursuits. And I think he's right there on the edge. There was another story about from True Lies, Jamie Lee Curtis. They wanted to do it live. So the sequence on the bridge, the two bridges down in Key West in Florida, they wanted to do in camera and with the actress the scene where she's out of the top of the sunroof and in the truck that's going to fall over the edge of the bombed out hole,
right, and
grabs onto the helicopter foot and gets pulled to safety. It's a brilliant sequence in the film. It's a brilliant shot because you're staring right at Jamie Lee Curtis. And Cameron said, "I'll be up there. I'll be filming. I'll be right there with you, hanging on the side of that thing," in order to make sure that, because he's willing to get down there and get dirty and do the thing, so that that I'm not just telling you to go do it because I'm not a dictator saying make this thing happen. I hope it looks good. I'm going to go drink some tea.
Right.
Like, he's going to be up there with you. That's why I respect Cameron so much.
Yeah, and he knows. See, that's the thing. He knows that he has to give the actors confidence in him, because if he's asking them to do this crazy stuff, he understands what he's asking is a lot. So to be able to be right there with him, that's a really good example. I was thinking of, when you were talking about how he's like this technician, right? I was watching the behind the scenes for Aliens, and there was this one shot that they needed of the face hugger running towards somebody, and they weren't able to do it correctly with animatronics, like making it go towards, but they were able to pull it away. But there was rain or there was water dropping in the shot. So he's like, well, just film it, pulling it away with the water. And then somebody was like, well, yeah, but then it's going to look like the water's going backwards. He's like, it's okay because you're only seeing it for a split second. You won't even be able to tell. Like having the foresight to know that what the end product would be, even though it's not a perfect shot, that no one would be able to tell. Like that's a really good explanation because he is capable of seeing through, or rather, understanding the process and his job. He can do it all. And that's where he comes from. So that's what makes him a really effective director. Mm-hmm. Definitely, like you said, adaptable for sure.
So what's your take, Todd? Do you think that there's some room in the middle here, or do the directors that you gravitate towards to tend to be one extreme or the other?
I kind of gravitate towards the collaborators because I'm kind of that way myself, having directed student films back when I was a kid. And, I tried to do everything on my first several films. And then I went and hired a cinematographer. Well, not hired, but I asked a friend of mine who was a cinematographer, to shoot the film for me while I directed. And it's a completely different looking movie than anything I ever shot before. So, yeah, I mean, there are the collaborators. And I think that, Spielberg is definitely one. Zemeckis is probably a little more controlling from what I understand, but Joe Dante is definitely very collaborative, but he has that dark humor twinge to his work. That's what I like about his stuff. It could be the most scariest thing, but there's going to be this little bit of dark humor in there that is just going to be so off that it makes the film just so much different than what you would expect.
Yeah, the one thing that I could recommend is if anybody ever wants to get what that letting go feeling is from being part of a production like this, is take a weekend when it comes around to your town and try the 48-hour film festival and find a meetup that's doing it in your area. Because, man, you can write a script and then you hand it over to 16 other people that are going to, beat it up and make it their own. You can be the director and you get handed a script and, you've got something to start with and then have to take it the rest of the way. You can be the cinematographer and have to, try to do your best to get what the director's asking for. Or you can be an actor and, maybe you've got some training and maybe you don't. And you've got to live with taking that direction from maybe somebody who's never tried it in their life. So I give a big thumbs up for that. It's a lot of fun. So so my experience has been pure collaboration. Obviously, none of my stuff is, feature length or of any high quality, but just that experience is, I don't care what industry or what you do. I mean, you can take that stuff back and apply it to whatever you're working on. For me, I work in a collaborative job to begin with, but all those jobs are very, very highly well defined. And you get into a crew type operation like the 48-hour film festival. It can be really eye-opening.
Yeah, I might have to give that a shot someday. That sounds like fun to like collaborate with other people because I I do like the whole James Cameron approach where you sort of know everything a little bit about everything, but it's always nice to be able to work with people who really specialize. Like, oh, I'm the lighting guy.
Yeah, for sure.
I know lights.
But I mean, it's really humbling to show up and say, all right, I'm going to be the director on something like this. And then realize, A, you've got a budget of time and money and people's willingness to put up with whatever bullshit's happening. So it's it's an experience.
Sam, you had a question here on the agenda here. Who had the best career?
Ooh, what do you think, Brian? Where would you go?
Well, geez, I mean, I think obviously a lot of our favorite directors are still working. So, but if you were to ask me right here at this moment, I mean, I'd say the argument could be made for Spielberg.
You know, I was going to say the same exact thing, and I thought it was going to be controversial because Spielberg, for me, was all about those action adventure movies when I was 10 to 15, and now he has directed it to something with a higher purpose and deeper artistic intent. Not that he wasn't artistic to begin with, but the subject matter and maturity has changed, you know. There's a hell of a big jump between, you know, E.T. and Amistad, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's the latest that he's done?
I don't know. You guys know?
West Side Story.
West Side Story,
yeah. Duh.
And if that was his last film, what would that say about that career, you know? Has anybody seen it?
No, but I don't know that it would say anything negative. I know there the diehards who prefer the 61. I mean, there's a whole thread about it on Home Theatre Forum, a very circular conversation about it. But I don't think it would say anything. He did a film for him.
Yeah.
He loved that film. He wanted to make a film that had more authenticity that afforded today's age. And he did it. He made a few different artistic choices. He kept a lot of the artistic choices from the previous version because they were ingrained in his experience watching that on the big screen. So I think he produced something that he made for him. And I'm enamored that he got to do it. And I can't wait to watch it. And I'm not a big musicals fan. But Steven Spielberg directing a musical, even if it was a commercial failure, I think there's as much to do with the adults not going to the theater during a pandemic as it is disinterest in a long musical, as it is, you know, disinterest in a remake of West Side Story and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of factors that went into the 36 million that it only made in the U.S. so far.
I mean, I'm certainly willing to admit that Steven Spielberg has earned an ego boost movie, but to me, there's a real thin line between that and a shot-by-shot remake of Psycho, for example, you know?
Yeah.
So, do I wish he had, you know, put his take on, you know, something more original? Sure, but, I mean, that's his career and his choice, so who are we to you know, to second guess that, I guess?
Well,
I have to say...
Go ahead, Todd.
I have to say I was a little disappointed that he chose West Side Story as his musical because he's been talking about doing a musical ever since 1941, not the year,
right,
the movie.
The movie, yeah.
and at that, you know, and watching the one dance sequence in 1941, it's like, yeah, I've been, you know, really looking forward to him doing a musical, and you know, I do want to see West Side Story, but you know, but I was also a little disappointed that that's what he chose.
Sure, we could have gotten Steven Spielberg's Hamilton, right?
Yeah, he is sort of like, you know, you can classify him as like, you know, America's director. He makes these films that are more cultural, you know, speak to our culture. And you know, he's got that likable personality like Tom Hanks. So,
but he's not
like,
he doesn't shy away from tough subjects either, but they're buried, right? So, well, I mean, Amistad obviously was pretty in your face, but you know, especially in the earlier works, you know, there's pain underneath a lot of the stuff that he's talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't ever feel like Spielberg reveals a, the fundamental profound truth about anything. It always reaches, it's got a boundary. He's got a limit to how far he takes something. I think sort of keeping things mostly safe. I don't know if this is really making sense, but he's got to be that. He has a reputation to uphold. He can't take chances like maybe another director could, because that's not his MO.
I would say I think Schindler's List was his great risk taking, because that is very dark subject. It's also deeply personal to him. And there was a huge, I agree with your general sentiment, Brian. I do. I just think Schindler's List is the exception to that sentiment. And I think that someone could watch that film and not give it a perfect grade blows my mind. I'm sure there are legitimate reasons why people have issues with it. I just can't see them. I think it's a flawless masterpiece.
Let me ask you. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Can you watch Schindler's List and say, "Oh, this is definitely a Steven Spielberg movie"?
You can, in some sequences, or how he moves the camera, or how he uses reflection. There are his signatures through it, but it's also shot very different. There's a much higher contrast. It's more striking and harsher imagery. Obviously, the subject matter is brutal, incredibly difficult to take, but you can see his DNA through that. And I think of all the directors that we've mentioned tonight, each one of them has a recognizable thing that you can say, hey, I know I'm watching a Quentin Tarantino movie, or I know I'm watching Christopher Nolan, I know I'm watching Spielberg or Scorsese or Kurosawa
Kubrick,
or Cameron.
for sure. Yeah.
So let me ask you this though, Neil. I've watched the movie once. I remember certain scenes, like when they're separating the parents from their children, and they're kind of like crying and all that. I mean, that's a very hard emotional scene to watch.
The red dress girl.
But I don't recall it being like. Did it show any like gas chamber stuff? Did we see any of that?
It's been 20 years since I saw it.
Like, I feel like if David Fincher were to have directed this, it would be an entirely different movie.
It might have been more bleak, but Fincher gravitates towards some very dark and very bleak places. Just watch his Mindhunter show, which is a fascinating show on Netflix. That goes to some pretty brutal places. I've seen Schindler's List exactly twice in my life. Once in the theater, and then once when it came out on home video shortly after. And I had such a hard time watching it the second time because the subject matter is so dark. It was so heavy that I've not watched it since. But there are moments in that film that are seared into my brain as just being viciously brutal. And there are sequences involving the gas chamber in that film, as I recall.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. So, I mean, but in general, Spielberg doesn't go as dark as Fincher or, some others, but, that's just not him. And that's okay, because he still has an emotional punch.
I don't know. I say Saving Private Ryan is as dark as anything that you can throw out there.
Yeah. That there. I still can't watch it to this day. And I don't want to spoil the movie for anyone who's seen it, but it's one of his best films, probably his second best. And I would say Schindler's List is his finest accomplishment. But right below that is Saving Private Ryan, and right next to it is Raiders of the Lost Ark. But in Saving Private Ryan, there's a sequence near the end where they're in that bombed out town, and there's a struggle between a German officer and an American GI, and they're struggling and they're fighting with a knife, and someone doesn't make it. That sequence of that young man's death, it still haunts me. And I think when you put that kind of brutality on film, and you really show the war as it actually is, rather than a sanitized version that we were all so very used to, I think that is another risk, quite frankly, for a director known for his sort of fantastical elements. But yeah, there's the brutality to Saving Private Ryan that can be tough to chew sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Next question here. Who are you most excited about from the crop of new directors? Sam, these are great questions.
Hey, I do my best,
I gotta
man.
commend you here. These are great.
Well, I thought you were going to come up with a similar list, and then when I didn't see it, I'm like, oh, we got to talk about this, man.
No, I should have. It's just, I'm sorry. You saved the day here with these questions. It's great.
Okay.
I have my thoughts, but I'm eager to hear your thoughts.
Let's throw it out to our guests first. How about you, Todd?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
We're talking about new directors,
new
like
and young directors,
relatively speaking, or even brand new, whatever.
I'm liking Taiki Waititi.
Mm-hmm.
His stuff is kind of odd. Not really sure about any other. I haven't really seen many new directors, actually, to tell you the truth. That's the only one I can think of at the moment.
Okay, how about you, Neil?
Ryan Coogler springs to mind.
Yep.
There's a man with a vision and the expertise to go get it.
Yep.
He's not that new, but Wes Anderson, that is such a unique signature voice in cinema that is so refreshing, that I love. The directors of John Wick, I'm gonna blank on their name. I'm trying to reach on my shelf here to pull one of them off my thing here. That is an action voice. Chad Zaleski.
Yeah.
There's a great cinematic voice, especially in the action genre. Denis Villeneuve is still relatively new. He's only got a handful of movies under his belt, but progressively more fascinating product with every film that he's done. If you've not seen Prisoners, go watch that movie for that's how you do tension, drama, and thriller wrapped into one moody, brooding piece of brilliance. And then he directs Arrival, and then he comes out with Blade Runner 2049, and then he did Dune just recently. That is a fascinating director.
You're spot on. He's everything he touches. He did what's the other one? Benicio del Toro.
Oh, Sicario.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
great.
Yeah. I can't wait to see Dune. But yeah, everything he touches is just gold. He's definitely one of those up and comers. The other one that came to mind, I've been saying this one for years, Sam, and I haven't yet seen the movie, the new Bond movie, but Cary Fukunaga, just simply because of the first season of True Detective.
Yep.
Neil Blomkamp was on that list. I'm not sure what happened to him. Does anybody know?
No idea.
He ran into some issues after Chappie didn't do well, so he sort of retreated, started his own visual effects studio, Oats Studios or something like that, and they produced a whole bunch. It's on Netflix, actually. It's fascinating little snippets of sci-fi genre pieces. You should definitely find it. And I think he's just putting together what his next move is, because he was gonna do an Aliens movie with.
That would have been awesome.
Sign me up.
But that got kiboshed when I think Ridley Scott's like, no, I'm still interested in going into this universe. Let's pause.
Ridley was wrong. They should have gave it to Neil.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to take this in a different direction, Brian. There are a number of directors that I'm really excited about and people that I'm watching with interest. But the thing that occurs to me is just how multicultural it is. It's not just all a bunch of old white guys anymore. You've got people like Jordan Peele and Steve McQueen who are pushing the envelopes from that perspective. You already mentioned Ryan Coogler.
Agreed on Ryan Coogler, by the way.
Greta Gerwig has just got a really, really interesting perspective on stuff and a vision. I didn't really care for either Lady Bird or Little Women, but you can't deny the vision that was put on them. But the one guy that I'm really super enthused about is Robert Eggers, and just the stuff he's been coming up with, including The Witch and The Lighthouse. That is right in my wheelhouse, and I can't wait to see what he comes up with next.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, for bringing up women directors as well as directors of color. So much of our, well, at least so much of my experience with directors are, just the standard old white guy.
Yeah,
and that's fine. But there are new and up and coming directors, obviously, and I would totally agree with you. Even though I did like the Lady Bird and Little Women, and obviously Creed was awesome. So Eggers did Lighthouse, which I haven't seen. What's the other one? The Witch?
The
What
Witch.
was that about?
Oh, it's a period piece about a family on the frontier who've been excommunicated and are living out on their own, and just things continue to go bad for them. And it's not clear whether they are the cause of their own demise or if there is an actual supernatural force that's working against them. But it's spooky. I'd probably, the closest thing I would tie to The Witch is the Blair Witch Project. If you like Blair Witch, I think you will really like The Witch.
I'm writing it down right now.
Again, not found footage, right?
Right.
But that whole supernatural horror, what's going on, what is actually working against me kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it's so spare. It's so uncluttered.
Yeah.
You're right. He's a brilliant up-and-coming director. You should definitely watch The Witch. That is a brilliant piece of cinema.
Awesome. I don't know if I even heard about this one. I definitely heard of The Lighthouse. That was the one with Pattinson, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Monkey Pump.
Well, you know who else? I'm probably going to pronounce his name wrong too, but Alejandro Inarritu,
director,
Revenant and Birdman. That's a terrific director to watch. Again, one of those directors, whatever his next movie is, I'm going to watch it because his style is so imprinted on what he produces, what he directs, that I want to see that style, that voice.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
they probably get Final Cut too, I would imagine.
He does now.
Yeah. Awesome. Looks like you got some.
Also thrown out to Jane. I had to look it up. Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. She knocked it out of the park with that, really, too.
Power of the Dog.
Oh yeah, on Netflix, so you wouldn't have seen it.
Oh, is this a movie or a series?
No, it's a movie. Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, in the Old West.
Yep. John Chu in The Heights and Crazy Rich Asians. Yeah, so lot of really cool folks out there.
Okay. You want to take this last one here, Sam?
Sure. You want to read it off for us?
Okay. Well, you have what director is influencing and or mentoring the most?
Right. And so when Neil had actually mentioned Roger Corman, if you look at the directors who actually worked on his crew, I mean, it's like a mafia of directors and people that are in crews and big in studios today. So who do you think is working with the most young directors? We talked about the Bay. What was the word we used? Beta for all the directors that had worked with Michael Bay. And I don't know if that's really from him as a producer as much as a director, but who do you think is, either working with young artists or influencing young artists the most? And I don't have a good answer for that outside of Michael Bay.
Which director?
Yeah.
The only one that springs to mind, and only because I read an interview with him just recently, is Denzel Washington.
Really?
Because there are a lot of actors that look up to him. He helped pay for Chadwick Boseman to go to acting classes or a course. So he was instrumental in Chadwick being able to make his way to cinema. But he just did the film with Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan's prepping to film and be his directorial debut for Creed 3. And so Michael B. Jordan was learning from Denzel Washington on how to direct his first movie. And if you watch any clips of Denzel on set, whether he's an actor or whether or not he's directing, like on Fences and the other movies that he's done, he just spouts this wisdom like a genius mentor, and he's got that mentor mentality about him. Even when he's talking in interviews, you can hear him sort of speaking the truth of the world. So any director that can help a young and upcoming director like a Michael B. Jordan find his footing on a big studio film like a Creed 3 is doing the right thing.
Michael B. Jordan's directing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Hey, so I actually have a better answer for this, because I knew that there was like some multicultural programs and like women in film stuff, but I just remembered that it was Ava DuVernay who has started up a new mentoring program. So that might be the real answer there.
That's a good one.
You know, one thing we didn't talk about, this is slightly off subject here, but is the actor director.
Ooh. Yeah, who do you think does that well?
Yeah, well, there's plenty of people who do it well. Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, Kenneth Branagh,
Denzel.
Yeah,
Denzel,
like you just mentioned Denzel. I don't. Okay,
Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Hanks would probably lead the list for me.
What has Tom Hanks directed?
Greyhound and a couple other things for Netflix. What was that new robot movie he did? That was awesome.
That was on Apple TV Plus.
Oh yeah.
His first movie was That Thing You Do.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's right. I wouldn't necessarily throw Ben Affleck in there, but he is one of those actor directors. I did like Gone Baby Gone.
Yeah.
I thought that was well done.
Yeah. Cool.
Can we talk real quick about shitty directors?
No. No, we're very positive here, Brian.
Real quick. I haven't been particularly impressed by anything Eli Roth has come out with.
Really?
Mick G.
I like a couple Eli Roth movies.
And Paul W.S. Anderson.
Wow, I mean that's you're not you're not enough of a critic.
Paul W.S.
Yeah, man.
Go watch Event Horizon and tell me that man can't direct.
Oh, no, okay. Everyone gets an exception. Fine. I like that one.
I even like his Resident Evil movies. They're progressively sillier, but they find their footing in this really bizarre way. They're great popcorn movies, and Quentin Tarantino loves Resident Evil, so there's got to be something to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just like when I don't. He did Mortal Kombat though, the original, didn't he? I'll give him two. I'll give him that and Event Horizon, but the rest, it's just like it's just they're serviceable. It's like you have to enjoy the subject matter to enjoy the movie. I don't really see any particular style there.
You know which director I've never understood the appeal of is Rob Cohen.
Yeah.
He directed the first Fast and Furious movie, which is the most serviceably entertaining of all of them, even though it was the original. But he did things like I think he did the first XXX movie,
right?
Daylight with Sylvester Stallone, Dragonheart.
Oh, don't talk to me about Dragonheart.
So these are a whole bunch of movies that are just okay. I just don't understand the appeal.
I would agree with you, but his exception is Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Oh, he did that? Okay.
I think he did that one, which that was a beautiful film. I don't think you guys remember that one.
I do. Todd, you sounded like you had a comment to jump in with.
Oh, I was just going to go back to Paul W.S. Anderson and say I really enjoyed Monster Hunter for what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet,
I don't need to see the movie. I already know what it's going to be.
Yeah. But you guys are all off the mark. You none of you have even come close to the worst director that's out there today.
Oh God, here we go.
Uwe Boll.
Oh yeah. What a mess that is.
But I think he is almost embracing of the title, so I don't know how much he can lay at his feet.
Yeah, he gave video game movies a bad name.
Well, I mean, he gave movies a bad name. It just happens to be that, So let's look at a couple of these here. Blood Rain, Alone in the Dark, House of the Dead, Blood Rain 2, Postal, which was probably the worst movie, one of the worst movies ever made. Some of these I haven't even heard of. Blubberella, Zombie Massacre, Rampage, President Down. Yeah. So, yeah, none of what you've listed is even close. Despite that, Uwe Boll only has 3 nominations on the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Director. And I'm looking at this list, and I disagree with, I'm going to say, about 40% of it, because it's got movies like The Avengers on it. It's got, let's see, Rocky 4. There's some good movies in here that they nominated. But who do you think is leading with the most nominations for Worst Director since 1980? It's a tie, actually. I'll tell you that. Spoiler alert.
Can you give me a hint?
We've talked about him tonight.
Michael Bay.
There you go. He's number 1 with 6 nominations.
Yeah, his movies tend to be, kind of on the silly side, but as a director, he knows what he's doing.
Oh, he's a technician for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to respect him for at least all the crazy camera moves he's got. I mean, there's some serious tech happening with his productions. The movies just silly.
So he's tied with Rennie Harlin for 6, and Brian De Palma, of all people, has 5. M. Night Shyamalan has 4.
Oh my God.
Uwe Boll only has 3. John Landis has 3. Tyler Perry has 3, and even Kevin Costner's got 2. So.
Oh, Kevin Costner, actor, director.
There you go.
Yeah, Tyler Perry, actor, director. We mentioned Sylvester Stallone, another actor, director.
Oh, duh, of course.
Yeah. Yep.
I like Tyler Perry in Gone Girl. He was great in that.
I think Tyler Perry is an underrated actor. I think he is really good, and he doesn't get enough credit as an actor. And I say that without having seen any of the Medea movies. So.
Yeah.
What do you think, Todd? You got a director you love to hate?
Roland Emmerich.
Okay.
There you go.
Brett Ratner.
What of theirs are you opposed
Darren Aronofsky.
Oh.
I like Aronofsky. Pie? Come on, man.
Yeah, no, he's too weird for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
That's fair.
But he's got vision, man. He's got vision. Fountain.
What bad Roland Emmerichs are out there?
Roland Emmerich?
Yeah.
The only movie I really kind of liked of his was Independence Day.
Sure.
But he did The Patriot, Godzilla.
Plot
that's
matters.
The worst.
Plot
he has a
matters.
movie out right now. What's it called?
Moonfall.
Moonfall.
Yeah.
He's all upset that it didn't do well. Him blaming Marvel, and I'm like, okay, but the trailer just dropped like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Blame the studio, buddy.
Yeah. I will buy Moonfall on 4K disc. So you have that going for you, Mr. Emmerich. I almost went to use my A-list to see it this week, and then I was like, nah, I'm going to wait for the home and my upgraded projector for that.
Well, Sam.
That was a pretty good list. I got to tell you, Brian, first of all, before I say I'll say what I was going to say first. I really hope that folks on Home Theater Forum will jump in and tell us who their favorite directors are and least favorites. But I was really surprised that not a whole lot of other people were interested in doing the inside the actor studio and films to be buried with questionnaires. I was really intrigued to see what people had to say on those, and a little disappointed that nobody else, not too many did it. Shout out to John Rice for doing his, and I think 1 or 2 other folks did theirs. Oh, well.
Yeah. We try.
You know what time that is then, Brian?
I do, sir.
Also, good director. We didn't talk about Sergio Leone.
Yeah, I'm sure we missed a few. Don't hate us.
Oh, you know who we didn't talk about as a director?
Who's that?
Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Hint, hint. Clint Eastwood
Mm.
as a director.
There you go. Actor, director.
Actor, director. Some of my favorite movies are Clint Eastwood movies. For
Yeah,
sure.
he's competent at both. That's for damn sure.
And what a career too, going from those spaghetti westerns to, a bunch of movies with an orangutan to, just Oscar winners. I mean, who does that?
I've seen those ones. What were what's the
Any
one
Which Way
with the
But Loose.
orangutan?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Any Which Way But
Loose. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right Turn, Clyde.
Yeah. Okay. So, Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Why don't we let our guests go first here?
Well, I really wanted Neil to go first because his is a secret.
Okay.
What you got first, Neil?
So, and the good is the thing that I've watched recently, and I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing.
Oh, no, you can't tell us ahead of time. So give us the other one first.
And the bad is something I've seen recently, and I thought, well, that's just terrible.
Okay. All right.
Is that right? And what is ugly? What is ugly supposed to be?
No. You're supposed to just give us a movie. We're supposed to guess.
Right.
Which one we think that you thought it was.
So throw the title out. You haven't spoiled it yet.
Yeah.
Does it have to be a movie? Can it be something?
No, it can be TV shows.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna say The Book of Boba Fett.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Brian, I know you're a big streaming fan, so you're right up there on this one, right?
I'm gonna guess this. I think you probably thought this was good. Isn't it getting a lot of good press?
It's getting some mixed press, Brian. So the interesting as in could be really good, could be really bad, is that the last 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, and again, where's our spoiler alert here? I don't know which button it's on. Spoiler alert. The main character, Boba Fett, has not been featured as much in the story. And that's all we're going to say about that. Okay. So, if Neil is as big a classic Boba Fett fan as I am, he may be feeling a little disappointed, but I think both of us are going to be surprised at how they stick the landing on Wednesday. So I'm going to say currently bad, but possibly up in the air.
Okay. Todd?
What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, well, all the memes that have been going around on Facebook. Yeah, next week's episode, Boba Fett will guest star on the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the last 2 weeks were episodes of The Mandalorian.
Spoiler alert, Todd, come on.
Oh, sorry. No, it's all over Facebook. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm going to say good.
Okay, you're going to say good. So, Brian, you've got 2 data points here. What do you think about the Book of the Mandalorian?
Yeah, I'm going to guess good, but I'm just so uninformed here. But
Okay.
Neil, why don't you fill us in here?
I'm putting that on my good list.
Oh, okay. So screw the haters.
Exactly. I get it. I think I figured out what people's problem is generally with the Book of Boba Fett is that they wanted the gunslinger style character that we got
gritty.
in The Mandalorian. They wanted that guy to show up. But what we
Yes.
got was who Boba Fett became after his life-altering time spent in the Sarlacc pit. And I thought that was a much more interesting, much more risky story to tell. And I was fascinated by the flashback sequences with the Tusken Raiders and the slow piecing together. I thought it was going to go one way. I thought it was truly going to be crime family, mafia-esque type story. But then these last couple episodes, and I'm like, oh no, but all bets are off. This could get real big real quick.
Well, you're going to be super angry on Wednesday when Boba Fett kills Grogu.
Yeah, that might change things for me. But at this moment, it's good.
Okay. All right. So what do you got for us, Todd?
I have the recently dropped Amazon Prime Video series Reacher, based on the Jack Reacher novels.
All right. Can I take this one first, Brian?
Yeah.
So Todd, I have only seen the trailer for this, but the critique that I am most intrigued about with this Reacher thing, which was positive, said that this is actually a Bigfoot story in disguise, and that Reacher is actually a converted Bigfoot who is an alien to most human ways and emotions, and is approaching it from an alien perspective coming into humans, because he is not like other humans. And I realize that is kind of a joke and stuff like that, but having seen the original Reacher, I think it's a really interesting perspective to take this and to play a part that was originally played by Tom Cruise in what was, two I thought were fairly good movies, and one that has the most brutal opening of any movie that I've ever seen, with the exception of possibly Saving Private Ryan. It's intriguing. I think you're going to think this was good. Brian, what do you think?
I saw a trailer for this with no audio, really just, imagery. And the guy was huge.
Yeah.
Looked pretty decent to me. So yeah, I guess he probably thought it was good.
All right. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, I'm going to go with good for a couple reasons. One, I've seen the first 4 episodes.
Oh,
and I think
okay.
I think it's bloody good.
Okay.
And 2, the guy playing Jack Reacher is like the character's been torn from the pages of the Jack of Lee Daniels, not Lee Daniels. What's his name? Who's the author? Lee Child.
Lee Child. Yeah, that sounds
Lee
right.
Child.
Yeah, Lee Child.
From his book. This is the person. I've only read one of Lee Child's books, and it was The Killing Floor, which the first season is based on. That's the guy right there. But I will defend to my death Tom Cruise in that role, because where he lacks height, because he's only 5'7", he's had a presence on screen. And the film was Christopher McQuarrie, another director we should have talked about.
True.
That film is brilliant. The second one, not so much. The first one was a brilliant piece of cinema.
Yeah,
Agreed.
The interesting thing about that first movie is that we saw it live at a home theater forum meet at the studio that put it out. Was it Universal?
Paramount.
Paramount.
No, it's Paramount. We saw it, I think, 2 months before it opened.
And I sat there for the first half hour saying there's no way this film will ever make it to the theater. This is just too insane and too close to a real, active shooter situation.
That's right.
And to their credit, they put it out, and as far as I know, it never really made any kind of waves as far as, inciting other active shooters or anything like that. But I was convinced it wasn't going to come out.
I totally forgot about that, but yeah, that was pretty provocative.
Yeah, man. And especially for, all the news that was happening around it too. So, but yeah, what do you think? Was it good, Todd?
It's good.
Yeah,
it's good. We binged it over 2 nights and really enjoyed it. It's a bit gruesome in a couple spots, particularly the second episode, but just a warning out there for the squeamish, but very good.
Do they have the same opening scene as what the first Jack Reacher movie did?
No.
Spoiler
no.
alert.
No.
Not so far anyway.
There's
right?
There's a scene. There's a shot of one of the victims in the second episode that is a little shocking, and they kind of linger on it a little too long, I thought. But that's my opinion. But good news for the fans who are enjoying the show and enjoyed the series. Just as we're going on the air, just before we were going on the air, I saw on Facebook that Prime Video announced that a second season has already been greenlit.
Yeah,
nice.
Good.
Are they going to put out Blu-rays for Brian?
It's Amazon. Actually, it's Paramount. So Paramount's actually producing the show for Amazon. So
it's a good possibility.
Possible.
There. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, Brian, what do you got for us?
All right, real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Godzilla versus Kong, because I got 2. Godzilla versus Kong.
All right, if this is anything, well, I'm thinking Kong Skull Island. I'm going to let our guest go first. What do you think, Neil?
I probably didn't like it. I'm not sure if that's the bad or the ugly, but I don't think you cared for it.
Okay, Todd.
Bad for me. I didn't like it either. But I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I didn't hate it either. It had some good, action sequences, but it is no Skull Island, damn it. So it's definitely not ugly for Brian. I think Brian bought this movie with his splurge for Black Friday. So I think he's going to come down in the good category.
Good memory, Sam. This is a bad movie.
Okay.
But I will say that the action fight sequences, why didn't they just make the movie that and make it 30 minutes long? That's all it really needed to be. All the ridiculous characters running around, like I could give a shit.
Did you like Kong Skull Island?
Yeah, but the same perspective there. I just want to see Kong. I don't need to see all the other stuff and all the monsters. All that stuff's like awesome.
The human connection.
I don't. So the human connection worked for me in Peter Jackson's.
Oh, okay.
Kong.
Yeah, but that's Beauty and the Beast, man. That's the classic story.
Yeah. I watched this movie Godzilla vs. Kong with my kids, and I said, "Hey, remember that?" I have them playing Nintendo, and I said, "Hey, remember that game Rampage that we were playing a month ago?" Well, that's what this movie's gonna be.
Not so much, huh?
Well, no, they loved it, and then the next day they were like, "Can we play Rampage again?" I'm like, "Yes."
Oh, nice.
So
well, anyway, I'm looking at the Rampage cabinet right here, so we never did crack that.
Oh
open
yeah,
because
you got it.
Yeah.
So let's go to you, Sam.
All right. So we already talked about the Lords of the Rings 6 disc collector's edition, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, despite the little voice in my head from my buddy saying it doesn't hold up. But again, another streamer here that you probably haven't seen, but Pam and Tommy.
Yeah, Pam and Tommy. This has Sebastian Stan in it, and some chick, I can't remember her name. She's been in a lot of good stuff. Downton Abbey and some other things.
Yep. She was in Baby Driver.
Baby Driver, yep. This looked entertaining. I mean, based off a true story. I hope it didn't pull any punches regarding what, but I'd say it's probably you thought it was a good movie.
It's a series. They're up to episode 3 so far.
Series. Damn. Okay.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think, Todd? And tell us if you've seen it, either Todd or Neil.
I haven't watched any episodes yet, but I've been seeing good press about it, so I'm going to say good.
Okay. Neil?
I think it looks terrible. I'm going to say you probably thought it was bad. I can't imagine it's good, but I could be wrong.
So, for the record, it's Lily James playing Pamela Anderson, and she is fucking radiant in this.
Yeah.
And Sebastian Stan is the only person on the planet that could have played Tommy Lee. He is
nice.
He is invisible as an actor playing Tommy Lee, who, is an interesting character on his own, bit of a dunderhead. And the series is absolutely fucking brilliant. Seth Rogen is brilliant. And Ron Johnson, what's the guy's name? I'll think of it. Nick Offerman is great. This is the best series that you will ever see featuring a talking penis.
Oh, nice.
There is so much nudity in this that I question whether it's prosthetics, CGI, or actually real. If this is Lily James being real or Sebastian Stan being real, I will eat my hat. But both of them are perfectly sculpted examples of human beings playing really, really strange characters, and them on one side and Seth Rogen on another is just absolutely compelling TV. And who knew? And apparently it was based upon a really great Rolling Stone article. and I have slated that to go to my Kindle soon because apparently it's really great and from 20 years ago. So I don't know how this thing's going to end as a show. Obviously, we know how it ends up in real life, but I'm along for the ride for sure.
Well, she's kind of petite. That was an interesting casting choice because I was like, why are they casting her? She's just nowhere near the same body type.
Again, I don't know, what's cosmetic, what is prosthetic, and what is CGI, but they make her, fold into the character of Pamela Anderson.
Got it.
And yeah. I've heard a lot of Pamela Anderson interviews over the years with her on Howard Stern, and the voice is identical. I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah. All right.
So I highly recommend it. It's popcorn TV. So
Pam and Tommy. Okay.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what that you got something for us, Brian?
I want to. Can we finish this off with one more?
Yeah. We got time.
Okay. This one I'm really interested to hear what y'all think. We're gonna go with Wonder Woman 84.
All right. I've got mixed feelings on this, so I'm gonna toss it back to our guests again. What do you think, Todd?
Ugly.
Ugly. Just straight ugly.
Yeah, I did not like that movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
Very huge disappointment. It's a complete 180 from the first film.
Yep. Okay. What do you think, Neil?
Sorry, Todd. I liked it. I really liked it. We watched it on Christmas Day. I guess it was the day that it came out. My wife didn't like it. I really liked it. I thought she had fun with it. I thought the first film was quite serious and was terrific as a result, but I think she genuinely, this is Patty Jenkins, the director, another director we probably should have talked about being in command of her craft. I thought she delivered something that was terrifically fun. There were faults with it, sure, but it's got one of Hans Zimmer's best scores of the past few years, and he's done some really, really good ones these past few years. So I couldn't hate it for any reason. No, I liked it.
All right.
What about me? What did you think? What do you think I thought of it?
Yeah. What did you think?
Oh, I don't care. You probably liked it.
Okay. All right. Do I get a vote, Brian?
Yes, you do.
All right. I liked the Serena Williams as Wonder Woman commercial 100 times more than I did the actual Wonder Woman 1984 movie. But there are some high points to that movie that I could see somebody hanging their hat on, especially maybe if you watch this with your kids. And I think that's the wild card here. But I'm not going to go full-blown ugly. I probably would have put it in the ugly category. I think you're just going to teeter over the edge into bad.
This was ugly.
Okay. That's fair.
I will agree. Hans Zimmer, point. 3 other things I appreciated about this movie. It was bookended, at least on the Blu-ray, by opening it up 185. I don't know why they chose to just do it in the beginning and the very end and not in the middle, unless I missed something. But that was an interesting. I always appreciate that. The highway scene, the desert highway scene, was incredible. I really loved that. And how I did not appreciate how they brought back a main character from the first movie, but what they did to resolve that character's storyline, that I liked.
I've already forgotten.
That was emotional. That hit me.
I've already forgotten what you're talking about, Brian. I've put it out of my head so much.
Oh, okay.
But we'll give it a big spoiler alert.
Well, do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
Todd? Yeah. We'll just say one of the love interests.
Oh,
the love
okay.
interest.
I gotcha. I thought you were talking about an enemy. Gotcha.
So anyway, I couldn't believe just 10 seconds into this movie, it looks like fucked up CGI fest. I'm like, what the fuck? This looks terrible. This is a fucking cartoon. How do you get away with this in this day and age? Patty Jenkins, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean that's the whole 1984 angle, man. So you're coming down hard on their artistic choices, not the story or whatever.
No, it's a nitpick. I'm just like, we were talking about CGI in the earlier part of the show with Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, it's 2021 or 2020, whenever it came out, and it looks worse than Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings look great, but this movies now have no excuse. They should look perfect, and this look ridiculous.
I think it was ridiculous by a choice rather than budget.
Yeah, well, it was not due to budget. That's for damn sure. Yep. They make him, the human figure, once it starts looking too rubbery and moving all around, I just don't get it.
Did your kids see it, Brian?
No.
Okay.
No. But that was not my major complaint with the movie. The major complaint with the movie was all the ridiculous characters.
Right.
Specifically the main antagonist. I like that actor, but God, they made him do some really silly shit in this movie.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the pro arguments for this was that, that it's supposed to be for young girls too, right? And the downside to that is that it's a very complex story with an unappealing storyline / villain that I don't know young girls would relate to as much as the hero side of it. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
First one was good. Yeah. This one not so much.
Well, that's going to take us pretty close to 2 hours. So we got a lot bigger mileage out of this than I thought we would. So I'm glad you guys reacted well to the additional questions I threw in. Brian, I think you did a great job getting us to this point and getting us on this conversation, and thanking our guests for bringing some unique perspectives.
Yeah, this was fun. This is a lot of fun. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Again.
We will definitely
always
have
great
you
to
back.
be here.
Brian, you got anything to end with?
No, man, I think Todd, take a look at those microphones, buddy. We'll have you on again.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Oh, you're sounding better now, Todd. What'd you change?
I think it's a setting on my sound card, so I'm gonna kind of look into
now
that
it's back.
tomorrow.
No, now it sounds.
Yeah, it's back, and we apologize to our listeners. We tried everything we could to get that fuzz out of there, but we knew we could hear Todd well enough to get his perspective. But we'll work on that tech issue and before we have him back on again. All right,
awesome.
Well, that's it for
Thanks,
me.
everybody.
I'm gonna go watch my brand new 5-year-old projector and enjoy every second of that. And I'm gonna have to think long and hard about what my upgrade move might be, if not any. That saving a couple grand would be fine with me.
That's true. Enjoy that projector, Sam.
All right, Brian. Good talking to you. Thanks to our guests, and we'll see everybody next time.
Good night.